Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. I think this is going to be my time slot for this. I'm going to do Avengers Assemble. I did issue 150 a couple of weeks ago, and now I'm going to do issue 151. If you're familiar with my channel, this is on Sunday, tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do Sunday comics, and I've been doing the X-Men from Giant Size X-Men, and now I'm just about to start the Hellfire Club Dark Phoenix story. And I've been doing that regularly every week. But I've been itching to do these Avengers. They're so good. So I'm starting with 150. I did that. And now I'm going to do 151 to around 200. We'll see. And the caveat is sometimes I'm working overtime. Sometimes I got to do things on Saturday. So I'll try my best to make it every Saturday. Excuse me. So here is issue 151. Forgive me, I forgot to set my alarm. I woke up like 20 minutes ago. I stayed up way too late. And I got to go back to work later on today. It's delicious. Everybody grab your coffee. Everybody grab a bowl of cereal. Sit down, Captain Crunch, and let's check out the Avengers. I wish this camera was bigger. You know, I wish I could get the whole comic in the image, but I can't. So first of all, let's check out. You could get my comic book, Heroic Tales 2. It's still available on Fund My Comic. I got 2 issues out already. I think they're pretty good. The art is amazing. The coloring is outstanding. Yeah, I'm working hard on my next. I'm working on 2 comics simultaneously. Well, I'm working on a few, but 2 that are nearer rather than farther away. Patriarch number 1 and King Fu Christmas Special. And I'll get more about that later. Massive Panda, how you doing, Massive Panda? You must be new. Good to see you. How's everything? So this is the way these videos work. Is I will look at the comic and then I will look at the comments. Comments from this point on. So this is Avengers 151. This cover is by Jack Kirby and ink by Dan Atkins. I gotta say, I'm a big Kirby guy. I love Kirby, but I don't know. This is his best inking, if you ask me. But what's going on now? Last issue, the Avengers started one of those. It's like a thing with the Avengers. Every couple of years, they do who's going to be the Avengers? Who's going to do I should use this for the cover. I just realized it says Avengers Assemble right on it. There you go. I'm going to change the background next week. But they always do like a roster change. You know, who's going to be the, and this is the big. This is the new one. They started it last issue. I talked about it already. Look at this, the new lineup. We got Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, who basically became the cornerstone of the Avengers, right? Thor was a founding member, Iron Man was a founding member, and Yellow Jacket as Ant-Man and Wasp, they were the founding, and Hulk. Hulk left in issue 2. Captain America joined in issue 4, and then Captain America was retroactively given founder status, which is a little BS to me. How can you become a founder when you weren't a founder? But whatever, it's Captain America. Captain America gets exceptions. We got the Beast over here, Scarlet Witch, and the Vision. At last, the new lineup. What do you see here on bottom? So we got some comments. So let's check out the comments. Hey, we got Marcus here. How you doing, Marcus? How's everybody? How's everything? Marcus was just with me last night for its clobbering time. Prador7, there's a name I haven't seen in a while. How you doing, Prador? Good to see you back. How's everything? And let's open up the comic. So here we got the prizes are cash. Declare your independence. And this is 1976. 1976. Look at this comic. This comic, I have 3 copies of this comic. I was just looking, and all of them are in great condition. But this particular one I got from a collection. I bought a collection off of somebody, and it had like, it was really weird because they weren't bagged or boarded, and they weren't in long boxes. They were in like, I don't know what kind of box. I've never seen boxes, but they were like long boxes, but they were longer, and the boxes were completely like browned and aged and everything. But the thing that I found amazing is he must have bought these comics, the passed away father. I bought them from the daughter, and put them in this box as they came out, because that was that was how I bought the collection. It was just, by week. So he must have just obsessively bought comics, put them right in this box. I don't even know if he read them or not. These are like near mint. Amazing collection. And it was basically everything from Marvel from like 1965 to about 1978. Just a great collection. So we got a misplaced Marvel masterpiece by Jerry Conway, Jim Shooter, Steve Englehart. Those are the writers. George Perez is the artist. John Tartaglia, there's a name I'm not too familiar with. John Tartaglia is the inker. Irving Watanabe is however you say his name. Watanabe is the letterer, and Don Warfield is the colorist. So two names I'm not familiar with. Don Warfield as the colorist, and John Tartaglia. New names to me. I'm going to pay attention to those credits to see if those names pop up a lot. That's John Tartaglia. Oh, they changed. They shortened it to Tartag. John Tartaglia sounds like an evil wizard who fights Conan. So now we got a splash page. So I'm going to start. A splash page is a comic book page that only has one panel, and it's usually, but not always, the first page of a book. And yes, you can have more than one splash page. And what do we got here? We got The Thing, Ben Grimm watching TV, and of course he's drinking a beer and goofing on the Avengers, So this is the big news. The big news of the day is who's going to be in the Avengers, and the Thing is just like, that's nuts. Who cares, And we got Moondragon over here, a character that I've always been fascinated with. She benefited from the less is more school of thought. I call that the Boba Fett syndrome. When you're not really given a lot of screen time, so you fill in the blanks yourself. And at this point, she would show up every once in a while, and then we would at least I would come up with what about her? So this is early George Perez. And as you can see, this isn't the best. I mean, I don't know if the inker destroyed it a lot, but just like the beast seems to be out of scale. Unless we're supposed to believe that this is just like cut and pasted and the news just cut and pasted everybody. But it just looks wonky to me. This pose of the Scarlet Witch over here. Captain America doing that classic Jack Kirby pose from Avengers #4. So I'm going to assume that we're supposed to buy that this is just like cut and paste on the news. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. But George Perez told the story that he was about to be fired by, believe it or not, Marv Wolfman, who, as you know, they made one of the greatest comic book runs of all time in the New Teen Titans. And George Perez, rather than crying and yelling and screaming, he panicked and he was like, I got to get better, and leveled up. So I wonder if this is pre-level up or during level up, because I'm a big George Perez fan, but if you look at some of his earlier stuff, especially like the Sons of the Dragons and the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, it is just weird. You could see the beginnings of George Perez. And you'll see him leveling up by the next 10 issues or so. It's going to be outstanding. But this is a little wonky. So this is, during the unless it's the inker just ruining his stuff. But you could see some classic. You could see some classic George Perez. Oh, I forgot to check. Yeah, I think that's his news TV montage. Yeah, I think that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be just like the news, just cut and pasted everybody. So I'm not going to bust too much chops, but you can see, So here we got, the first panel, and you could tell man, I must be still sleeping. My brain's not working. You can see the panel has like a thick black line, and whenever the panel borders are different, it usually indicates a break in time. So this is a flashback. This is a flashback to Avengers 5 when they fought the Lava Men. So in Marvel, in Marvel Universe, there's a bunch of races that live under the ground: the Moloids, the Tyrannoids, the Lava Men, and I'm sure there's more. And the Lava Men are a group of beings that live near volcanic, vents, and they're hot, and their skin is the consistency and the heat of molten lava. The Moloids are ruled by the Mole Men, and the Tyrannoids are ruled by Tyrannus. As far as I know, I don't think there's a central charismatic figure that rules the Lava Men. So they're talking about Thor. The newscast is bringing up how powerful Thor is, and then we cut to what's going on. Ben Grimm's head's over here. There's Ben Grimm. This is a little weird period of the Fantastic Four, where Ben Grimm lost his powers, but he's still in the Fantastic Four. Reed Richards made like a bionic Thing suit, and he dresses up like the Thing. So he has the best of both worlds. He's the Thing, and he's Ben Grimm. It's funny that he's sitting here in the Thing suit drinking a beer, but that's the way comic books are. It's funny how comic books and the movies are different in this aspect. In the comic books, they always have the characters in their costumes and masks and everything like that. In the movies, they can't wait to take you out of the costume, out of the mask. Like Spider-Man, even in the Tobey Maguire ones, was constantly taking his mask off. Robert Downey Jr. is always taking his helmet off. Chris Evans, he wore his mask for like 8 seconds. But in the comics, there's no reason for Ben Grimm to be sitting here in a Thing suit drinking a beer. But it's comic books. It's a visual medium. I wish the movies would get that. I don't care about Robert Downey Jr. I care about Iron Man. I especially don't care about Chris Evans. I care about Captain America. Put that freaking mask on. Same with Spider-Man. As far as I'm concerned, like Spider-Man, you can hire a nobody. Just put him in the costume, leave him in the costume. Once in a while, just he takes his mask. Who cares about the actor? As far as I know, only Hugo Weaving in V for Vendetta was the only actor who never took his mask off. Like they had Doctor Doom already. They had a Doctor Doom cameo in the Fantastic Four movie. He didn't have his mask on. Oh, I just got distracted. I'll talk about the comments in a minute. So now we got Ben Grimm just commenting like, who cares? Fantastic Four is always the same, except when they're not. But Ben Grimm is just being a grouch. And then they're talking about the first time the Avengers changed their roster. You had Captain America with 3 former villains. I always thought that was Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. If you remember, they were in the Masters of Evil, ruled by Magneto, and they are Magneto's kids. I don't know if that's been retconned or whatever, but as far as I'm concerned, they were Magneto's children. And then Hawkeye, who was a misguided guy who was led astray by the Black Widow and fought Iron Man, and now he became a hero. And now we cut to inside. They're having a meeting to decide who's going to stay in the Avengers. So Captain America is the first one to say, "I'll stay. I'm a man who's drawn to his roots, and my roots in this era are here in the Avengers Mansion. There are times you have to go home, and in the year of the bicentennial, this is where I should be." Somehow I knew you'd say that, old buddy. So keep in mind, this is 1976. Captain America was revived. Like I I forget. Marcus probably knows the year, but I'm going to round it off and say he's only been back in real time for 10 years. Remember, Captain America was created by Jack Kirby and Joe Simon in the 40s, and then the comic ran in the 50s, and then it ended, and then they brought him back in the Avengers. Remember, the Avengers was the first appearance of Marvel Captain America. Before that, he was Atlas. So he's only been, most of these characters only been around for like 10, 11, 12 years. So, Captain America is like, if you ask me, he's always like the heart and soul of the Avengers. So what about you two? I guess you're next on the list. So they'll find out who's going to stay. Well, wait a minute. As long as we're deciding who is and who isn't an Avenger, what about my old buddy? Is Hawkeye in or out? So at this point, Avengers. At this point, Scarlet Witch and Vision are married. I married an android. Scarlet Witch is always messed up, man. It just, I can't decide who's more messed up, Jean Grey or Wanda Maximoff. I'm going to say Wanda Maximoff. She's probably more messed up for longer and more bizarre reasons. Jean Grey just went berserk for too much power. But poor Wanda Maximoff, what a weird backstory she has. So she's married. She's married to a robot. I don't know what to say about that. I was going to make a bad joke. All right, let's check out the comments. Praetor 7 says actors have to take their mask off so you can see the. I know it's pure ego. It's pure ego. Commit to the bit. Commit to the bit. You're going to play a masked superhero. Keep your masks on. I could see they take the masks off when they're having like an auspicious meeting inside the Avengers mansion, but once they're on duty, keep your masks on. Keep your masks on. Hollywood actors want to show their face. The film Dredd got it right. We never see his face exactly like the comic. Yeah, exactly. Sylvester Stallone, like you took the role of a character who famously you never see his face. And you see Sylvester Stallone's face for the whole movie. Why did you take that role? That's like taking a Green Lantern's comic book and making a TV show about it, and you're embarrassed by the word green. And you're taking a cosmic space thing and making it why did you do it? Why did you do it? I call that lifting your leg. These people want to lift their leg, and they want to make them more important than the source material, whether you're the showrunner or the actor. Commit to the bit. Commit to the bit. You're playing Dr. Doom, we're never seeing your face. Which is ridiculous that they hired Robert Downey Jr. to play Dr. Doom. They could have got anybody. Phil Moskowitz is Dr. Doom because you never see his face. Infinite Entertainment says, John, seeing that awful Nick Fury. I know, I'm going to change it. I'm actually going to take a picture of this, and I'm going to use this as the backdrop. Why? Because it says Avengers Assemble right there. It's got Jack Kirby. So this is the last time you'll see it. I agree. It is distracting. We got Ben Sabar, voice actor. How you doing, Ben? How's everything? Everybody saying hello. Carl Urban said it's been 40 years and we still don't know what Dredd looks like. So he's insisted that when he took the role, he never takes his helmet. Well, that's because he's an actor who puts the role before him. Like if you play Hamlet, I assume, I'm not an actor, that you're going to take the words and the costume and everything like that seriously. You're not going to play Hamlet and then like come out smoking cigarettes and combing your hair with a switchblade knife. You know what I mean? Like you gotta commit to the bit. Isn't that like the first thing they teach you in acting school? So if you're taking the role, like what's his name, Tony Daniels, who plays C-3PO, he doesn't take the C-3PO mask off. He's C-3PO. James Earl Jones. We never saw James Earl Jones as Darth Vader, even though it was David Prowse in the costume. But you get the point. You're supposed to be the role. Who you are, it doesn't matter. You're supposed to be consumed by the role. We got my drive-by blessing, my Zactan. I am having a blessed day. I woke up, I'm drinking coffee, and I'm talking about comic books. My wife is at church. She goes to it. My wife is in a church, but the church rents the church from another church, and they have priority on Sundays. So the church they go on Saturdays. It's a Christian church, but they go on Saturdays. But good news is they just got a location, and my wife is like, "Oh man, I like having Saturday," so they'll be going to Sunday mass as soon as the building is finished. They're renovating it. In the comics, Captain America is the leader of the Avengers, not Iron Man. Tony Stark just pays for everything. Yeah. Well, yes and no, because to me, and I agree with you, Captain America is the best leader, but they have elections, and pretty soon, I forget exactly what issue, Iron Man is elected the leader. And Captain America, because Captain America had to do, but it always seems like Captain America, if he's there, he gets elected the leader. But there was a famous run where the Wasp was the leader, and there's a famous run where Black Widow is the leader. But I think in those runs, Captain America and Iron Man weren't around. I don't recall, if anybody could correct me, I don't recall if Thor was ever elected the leader. But for the most part, you're right, Captain America, and Captain America should be the leader. Once was cool. Good morning, John and chat. How's it going? Avengers 4 was 1964. Okay, so Captain America's been around for, this version of Captain America's been around for 12 years. She was just ahead of her time, old man. Dating AI is the future. Oh my God. That's funny. That's a funny comment. Technically, he's an android, or more precisely, a synthezoid. He had internal organs and synthetic blood. Yeah. This is such a nerd detail, I didn't even bring it up, but Vision will correct you. He's a synthezoid, meaning he's an artificial life form. Meaning, if you were to cut him open, you would see livers and kidneys. Like he replicates human life, but it's made of plastic and polymers. So he's even better than an android. Remember, the original Torch was able to give a blood transfusion to Jacqueline Falswood that had your gain super speed and be Spitfire. Yeah, I know. I always thought that was weird. That was a weird origin, right? Yeah, she became Spitfire. More Switchblade combs in the movies. I said, there you go. That couldn't hurt, right? Couldn't hurt. Hey, Pops is here. How you doing, Pops? Haven't seen you in a long time. How's it going? How's everything? Good to see you, Pops. Check out Pops Madness Entertainment Group. He does a lot of fun comic book stuff. Excuse me. The Avengers have a chairperson who is the de facto leader. Yeah, and they elect him, kind of like the Legion Superhero does the same gag every once in a while, like elects the leader. Although the Legion Superhero doesn't really usually have like a roll call episode. Like once you're in the Legion, you're pretty much in the Legion forever. But like the Avengers has a lot of like people walk in, walk out, walk in, walk out, which I find interesting. I kind of like that about the Avengers, and I wish a lot of X-Men would leave. I wish and I like that the Fantastic Four stays the same. Each team has their own flavor. Let's turn the page as I kick the bike stand. I plan to retire before 50. Started with borrowed money. In just 8 years, I gained financial security and sold out a profit every time. Oh man, it's too late for me to retire at 50. I wish I could. Last night, I put on Twitter a short little video of me core drilling. I love core drilling. Something satisfying about it. Just drill down, and they had these really cool core drilling machines that were just the best. So I just had a great time last night, just working drilling through the concrete. It's very satisfying. And what you got to do is you got to have water to cool down the drill bit, because if you dry drill, it heats up too much, and it'll cause the metal to expand, and the machine jams and the machine breaks, or the drill bit heats up and cracks. Either way, it's bad. So you got to have water. So this core drill, you just put in filled water into a big tank, and it had like a vacuum seal, and it contained the water, so you didn't use that much water. And then there was a vacuum that took the it was the best. It was so cool. But anyway, I had to go get water. So I'm walking. We were upstairs. So I had to go all the way downstairs with this tank, and there was a dark area. And the they were like, "Be careful, the stairs there aren't complete." So I'm like walking, I'm like, "Whoa!" And I just said to the other guy who had another tank of water, I said, "Don't. This could be my early retirement. Walking in the dark in incomplete stairs. There's no real, like, it was really unfinished. It was really a dangerous place to be walking." He was like, "Isn't it bad that we're thinking like this?" Yeah. Cap is definitely the battlefield leader. Yeah, to me, he is. If doesn't matter who the leader. If Captain America shows up, he's the leader. Like his charisma and everything like that. That's his superpower. To me, that's Captain America's main ability is his leadership. The funny thing is, the Human Torch is the only member of the FF to never be an Avenger. I know. It always bothered me when Reed Richards, Sue, or the Thing were in the Avengers. I always hated that. You know, I like the Fantastic. That's the core of the Fantastic Four. Is that I understand once in a while they'll have a replacement member, and comic books will do that every once in a while. Give you exactly what you don't want, and then celebrate it when they give you back what the way it's supposed to be. Like, Superior Spider-Man. We all knew that wasn't going to be the status quo forever. So I kind of was like amused by all the people yelling and screaming. I was like, just wait it out. It's a temporary change. They do that all the time. The black costume, Daredevil's armor, Ben Grimm losing his powers. It's always a temporary thing. Okay, so now we got some classic George Perez buildings. He always. I always thought that George Perez's buildings and Jack Kirby's buildings were always distinct. I could always tell when George Perez drew a building and when Jack Kirby drew a building. So we got this, floppy looking apartment. Guys turn on the TV. I'm tired. The crowd is calmer. He's watching. Who is this guy? And he turns on the TV and he sees Wanda. Wanda, no, you can't leave. So people are asking, oh, you can't see. Is Wanda going to leave the Avengers? No, you can't leave. I've come so far, for heaven's sake, it's not fair. Dun, dun, dun. This is what's called the B story. So the A story is who's going to be in the Avengers. And now we have the who is this guy in the flop house that's so concerned about Wanda? We'll find out over time, subplots. Now, let me ask you this, since the topic is brought up. I have a lot of ideas for subplots and character building in my comics, but I haven't really been doing them because I kind of have a policy. I want each issue to be self-contained. And in issue 2 of Heroic Tales, I think in Patriarch number 1, I put one of those asterisks, see Heroic Tales number 1. Because I think it's fair to reference what's happened before, but are you okay if I put? Well, now that I think about it, issue Patriarch number 1 has like a subplot building. They all do. You don't realize it yet, or maybe you do, but they all have subplots in it. But do I run an A, B, and C story in a crowdfunded comic that that's not on a schedule that you're gonna have to wait? I don't know. I haven't decided if I want to do that yet. I want to do it. But will you guys tolerate it? That's so let me know your thoughts in the comments. So now we cut to the Cap's kooky quartet fighting Dr. Doom. One of my things about comics is when you have like a major villain like Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom is one of the major villains. Galactus, one of the major villains. And then they just get defeated all the time. It just eventually turns them into a joke. Do not have Dr. Doom in your comic unless you have a story worthy of Dr. Doom, especially Galactus. When Galactus shows up and Squirrel Girl defeats Galactus, Galactus is now a chump. You know what I mean? It devalues the character. Like every week, Batman fighting the Joker, it just devalues the Joker. How many times are you going to see a guy get defeated? Everybody. Dr. Doom has got to be the biggest joke in Marvel now. He's defeated by everybody. Squirrel Girl, every loser. Like, I know you can't have Dr. Doom triumphant and killing off a hero, so don't use him unless you have a great story. But that's the way That's the way I feel, you know. Then we got the swordsman over here. What do we got down here in the middle? It is mine understanding, Wanda, that Hawkeye hath found contentment in the West, and he and the two-gun kid will aid. Ye should be called them to do. He's in detached service. So, so Hawkeye left the Avengers, and he's out in the West with the two-gun kid. The two-gun kid got displaced in time, so it's kind of like the Lone Ranger and Tonto. You know, like we got the cowboy with the guns and the sidekick Hawkeye with the bow and arrow, doing some Western adventures. Now that should be a series. They should, Marvel, if you're listening, do a 6-issue limited series of the two-gun kid and Hawkeye, you know, fighting crime, getting cattle rustlers. You know, you could still do all the Wild West tropes in a modern setting. You know, people still steal cattle, people still rob banks, you know, people still chase off people off their land and things like that. Do that. There you go, Marvel. Let's go. You know, of course, that I will remain. So the Vision is staying. We will remain. So okay. So Vision and Wanda. So far, all we know is that Captain America, Vision, and Wanda are staying. And me too. Sorry, but I never liked Protocol, and I've had enough waiting around in the hospital. The Winsome Wasp is back. Good, Jan. I guess that goes for you too, Hank. Dun dun dun. So this is what we call using the page break to build up suspense. And this is one of the things that gets lost when they do it in a trade paperback, because, you know, they know where the ads are going to go. So, you know, when you take out the ads, maybe this will be over here and it'll ruin the suspension, things like that. But we got tension building up. What is Hank going to decide? I don't know yet. Let's check out the comments. Marcus says, later on, Shooter was writing Cap. Iron Man butted heads over leadership. Yes. Little internal conflict increases drama and creating tension. And, you know, it's anything that creates tension creates drama. Drama in the good sense of the word. You know, not this internet, you're not my comic book faction drama. But, you know, real drama, storytelling drama. I always thought the fact that they made Sandman a reserve member of the Avengers, but never really used him. Yeah, I mean, Sandman is one of those guys he's a bad guy that he feels guilty, becomes a hero again, and then lapses back into villain status. So, like, maybe the Avengers are just like, we can't really trust him yet. You know, at this point, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and Hawkeye, you know, in Avengers 17 when they joined, they didn't really do anything that bad yet. I mean, has Sandman killed people? I don't even know. But maybe, you know, they got psychological profilers. As long as the major plot is self-contained, she could be fine to do subplots. That's a good point. Okay, thank you. That's a good point. Reason Vision was like, of course I'll say it's because they're stacking that $1,000 a week stipend to get a house. Yep. And all expenses paid. They don't need to buy food, and superheroes don't need to buy clothes. You know, they just wear the unstable molecule costume. Massive Panda. It's very difficult for the reader to perceive the villain as a threat if he's constantly getting whooped by every other character. Yeah, exactly. Good succinct way to put it. So they get $2,000 a week in the 70s. That's hundreds. Yeah, tax free. And what other they could just put all their money away. You know what I mean? Except for, like, you know, whatever frivolous they need to buy. You know, yeah. They live in the Avengers mansion. They get their food paid for. That's why I always laugh at, like, the president's salary. The president's salary just goes right in his pocket. You think Obama or Bush or Trump are buying groceries? You know what I mean? They're, you know, buying suits. You know, that's just icing on the cake. I know Trump only gets $1 a year, but you know what I'm saying? Like any president. And I'm not picking sides. I'm talking about any president. You know, same with any congressman or senator. Any money that they make is just gravy. You know. Sandman on the team would make it awkward. We're teaming up with Spider-Man. Yeah, I know. And Spider-Man should be on the Avengers. I'm sorry, Spider-Man's a solo hero. Daredevil shouldn't be in the Avengers. Moon Knight, there's some heroes it's okay to be a solo guy. Team up with the Avengers once in a while, but he shouldn't be on. Doctor Strange shouldn't be an Avenger. I know. I'm an old man yelling at the clouds. Hawkeye was never a villain. He only went up against Iron Man because Black Widow told him Stark stole. Yeah, there you go. He was misguided. And to me, that's a perfect example of Black Widow. She uses her womanly wiles to get you, to trick you into doing stuff. That's the whole point of the Black Widow. That, to me, she's supposed to be sexy, alluring, and manipulative. Everything else is secondary to her. One way to avoid that is for a villain to only be defeated by top-tier villains or overworld. Absolutely. Galactus doesn't show up unless it's, and I blame the editors for that, because you get hired to be a Marvel writer. You're like I'm assuming this is the way it should be, that you're just bursting with, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to use Dr. Doom. If you're writing Batman, you want to do a Batman Joker story. You're writing the Fantastic Four, you want to do a Galactus story, you want to do a Dr. Doom story. The editors are the ones who be like, no, that's not good enough for these characters. The editors, not only should they look for typos, look for continuity, but they should also say, like, this doesn't respect the character, or this isn't worthy of the character. We have a standard at Marvel. And I don't think they do that anymore. Avengers mentioned free room board, a butler that does laundry and turn out. Yeah. I know in the Kurt Busiek run of the Avengers with also George Perez, they showed that there was a whole staff, not just Jarvis. Like Jarvis was the head of a whole staff. They had cooks and washers and mechanics and things like that, which makes sense. I would love like a backstory of that, of like a guy who first day of the job is one of the guys who just does like maintenance on the Quinjet when Ultron attacks. So here we go. This suspension. What's going to happen? What's going to happen when I turn the page? An ad. Black Widow's over here, but that's using the ads as part of the comic book experience. So we still don't get an answer. So now, I just wish this camera could get the whole comic in. And if it's too far away, it's too small. Plus my desk isn't that deep. So we're talking about Avengers issue 28 in a flashback where Hank Pym is now Giant Man. Remember, we were talking about inconsistent characters. And Hank Pym is famously inconsistent. But to me, this is weird. And I know I'm a weird guy. He's so inconsistent that they addressed his inconsistency and they made it part of his personality. So therefore, he's not inconsistent, if that makes sense. Same with Namor. Namor is a good guy, he's a bad guy, he's a good guy, he's a bad guy, he's a good guy, he's a bad guy. But they addressed it as some sort of like, hybrid bipolar disorder, and bipolar disorder, they could throw at any villain or any character and explain inconsistencies. And it kind of works. The Hulk suffers from trauma induced by childhood abuse, things like that. So that works. That could explain any personality change in the Hulk. So Hank Pym has a bipolar disorder. So sometimes he's feeling inferior and whatever. But the reason why they did that is, quite frankly, Ant-Man, the shine wore off. It was kind of cool, kind of interesting back in the way earlier days, but now you got Hulk, Thor, and Kang the Conqueror and stuff like that. The guy who shrinks down to the size of an ant. While I love him, not everybody's a weirdo like me. So they gave him a flashier set of powers. Now he could grow big. And then he changed his costume again, and then he became Yellow Jacket, that was it. Yellow Jacket. To me, look at that costume. I mean, yes, this is when I started collecting the Avengers. I think it was 119 was the first Avengers issue I actually bought, but I think I got that. Not I think I know I got that in a Toys R Us in a package of 3. So it was probably years. It came out years earlier, and I just happened to buy it. That's what they did with old returned comics, as they packaged them in packs of 3, and they would put 2 really cool ones on the outside so you could see them, and then they would throw some crap in the middle. But it was still dirt cheap, and you got 3 comic books for like the price of 1. I love those 3 packs. You always like, oh man, what is this? I got Billy the Model in the middle, Chili Storm or whatever. But you got 2 other cool and you saw the other 2 comics. Just the one in the middle was the surprise, and they threw garbage in the middle. Marvel Triple Action reprinting Spider-Man or something like that. But this is what Hank Pym looked like when I started collecting the Avengers. So of course this is the one I like. Just with that costume, black and yellow, those wings, so freaking cool. And then we got early Black Widow costume, and then don't forget Hawkeye changed into this costume for a while. So yeah, the characters, all superhero characters, they change their status quo for a short while. They try things. Sometimes they change just to startle the readership into getting upset. Like, I think that's what the Superior Spider-Man was all about. As much as I'm down on Dan Slott, I kind of enjoyed the Superior Spider-Man, and I have nitpicks about that, but I kind of liked how different it was. What if Dr. Octopus tried to be a good guy? Because to me, Peter Parker was on the path to be Dr. Octopus, an obsessed scientific genius who's not appreciated in his time. It's just that the death of Uncle Ben put him on the straight and narrow. So I kind of liked exploring what if Dr. Octopus became the good guy, but didn't have that guilt, whatever. And I knew they were going to go back. Like, I won't go into that, but there was nitpicks that just bothered me about that. Whereas One More Day, no, that would have been, if I did One More Day, I would of course correct, or it would have been like, okay, this is the status quo, and then I would have had, like, once Aunt May found out about it, like, she finds out somehow, either Spider-Man tells her or like, and she's like, what? You sacrificed your marriage, your potential children, for an old lady who's going to die? No, that's wrong. I lived my life. You got to fit. And then he fights to restore everything. That's the way I would have done it. Or they could still do it. Does Aunt May know about it? That's what I would do. That's how I would fix that. But if I was in charge of Spider-Man and One More Day, I would have done that story just for the righteous anger of everybody talking about it, just so that everybody would be happy. You know what I mean? Like, you do that. The Fantastic Four changes its roster for a couple of issues because everybody's going to be upset, and then they come back. Reed Richards quits and storms out. And then they're interviewing other scientific geniuses to take over, and then Reed Richards comes back. That's just a comic book staple. That's just drama and tension. Sometimes they do that just for the, I'll do that. The patriarch, his wife will take over, and she'll be the patriarch flying around, just for outrage. Bring back Jim Kelly. That's the patriarch's secret identity, James Kelly. So here we go. Now we got all these people. What's going on over here? They all thought Janet Van Dyne remained faithful to her lover, and in the end, they married him under the guise of Yellow Jacket. The little fool. She could have had my love, General. Oh, okay. But she spurned my affection, rejecting me for that overgrown imbecile. She'll live to regret that decision, General. That I swear. As I understand it, Pym is something of a genius. Admittedly, you're also quite brilliant in your own way. But regardless, you shouldn't call Pym an imbecile. It reveals a lack of self-control. If we're to become partners in this little enterprise, you'll need to cure your ferocity. So, boom, who is it? At first I thought it was Whirlwind, because Whirlwind, his secret identity as he was Janet Van Dyne's chauffeur. She's a millionaire heiress. So she's grew up. She's Paris Hilton, and her chauffeur became obsessed with her and like discovered he was a mutant and fought and tried to, win her love by being a jerk. So that's why I thought this was over here. And then the flash of light flies away. But, so it's obviously not Whirlwind. Who is it? We'll find out. But I love the evil general smoking cigarettes, plotting behind the Avengers. That's such a comic book trope. They always have the bad businessman, the bad politician, the bad general. Like, it's a wonder anything gets done in the Marvel universe. And I was just about to say something, and I realized with every world, authority figure is a bad guy. But is it fiction anymore? Is it fiction anymore? Every authority figure is a bad guy. Conspiracy theories are correct. So let's check out the comments. Okay, Marcus Killigrew. At the time of this comic, Galactus really wasn't used that much. Yes, because they had good editors at the time. Yeah, Galactus was saved for what Chuck Dixon calls "oh shit" stories. When Doctor Doom or Galactus showed up, it was "oh shit." I better get this comic. This is going to be important. Now Galactus. I'm not even joking. They're doing stories where Galactus' stomach hurts and he farts. And now the fart becomes a sentient Galactica, the girl Galactus. Save me from modern Marvel comics. I can't imagine subplots hurting your book, and they might just pique somebody's interest to stick around more. Thank you. That's good. That's 2 votes for it. Believe it or not, there are subplots already in them. And I was just talking about this. Who was I talking about this? That sometimes I wonder if I'm being too vague. I don't want to just be like, this is a subplot, So like I already have stuff that's leading up to other things, but I wonder, am I being too vague? Like the Mary Sue story, to me, it's so obvious what happened, and I'm still hearing that people didn't get what happened. So that when I had to rewrite issue number 2, basically, there's like a couple of panels that explained what happened in the first appearance of Mary Sue. Some people get it, some people didn't get it. And I thought I was being heavy-handed. I'm like, I got to make this more obvious what happened. And some people, but there was one review, I think, American Texan, he gave it away. He told people what's going to happen in the next issue. So I don't know. Like there's, and I did throw a subplot in Patriarch number 1. Let's see if people pick it up. In 28, he went from Giant Man to Goliath. Oh, by the way, back to this. I have a big subplot story that I'm probably going to put in Patriarch number 2. Patriarch number 2, I bumped the order. Patriarch number 2 was going to be this, but then I said I had another story that was going to be later. I said, no, this one's got to be first. For reasons. I don't want to explain why, but I think I'm going to throw in, because a couple of people just didn't understand Lucius Kane, the suit. What was that story all about? I want to think. I think I want to throw in some of his mechanization so they'll understand that character a little bit better. So I think I'll think issue 2 of the Patriarch is going to have like a lot of like subplotty B story stuff building up. In issue 28, he went from Giant Man to Goliath. They really had no idea how to use Ant-Man. Yeah. Ant-Man was a stumbled hero. Like what was it? Tales to Astonish was his comic. And they just made a horror story, The Man in the Anthill. And it was a story of a scientist, Hank Pym, who shrank down to the size of an ant, dealing with horrors of being that size. And then it was a one and done story. People liked it so much they brought him back as a superhero. So, and there's a couple of like an underwater hero, a shrinking hero. You really got to work hard to sell those characters. There's like outer space, you can make up whatever rules you want because you're on a planet that or you could go to. You don't like the rules here, go to another planet. But under the water is really tough sell. And shrinking down to ant size is really a tough sell. It's not the flashiest of powers. So to me, shrinking heroes always seem to be good support characters on a team. And underwater stories, are hard to put on a team because the rest of the team doesn't thrive underwater. So underwater guys usually work solo, and they like, for the most part, the Submariner and Aquaman, when they're in Atlantis is just any other city, and then they just have a fish swimming by. Like, they walk on the ground, they use stairs. Why do they do all this stuff? It's underwater. Everything should be different. So I have a story about an underwater civilization in my comics, and it might as well be another planet because it's so freaking alien. Because that's the way it would be, They can't be advanced because they can't smelt metals unless they live by volcanic reefs, and then human life can't live by there because the conditions. So then they have to be alien. You get what I'm saying? I don't want to give away too much. Marvel Tales was Spidey reprints. Triple Action started as FF, but then became Avengers reprints, while FF went to Marvel's. Yep. Hey, Courtney's here. Haven't seen Courtney in a long time. How you doing, Courtney? We still got to talk. You got to come on my channel, talk about music one of these days. Haven't seen you in a long time. Courtney's one of my, one of my original viewers. Haven't seen her in a long time. Good to see you. There's no way. That's why I was out after one more day with the great power comes great responsibility. That means no deals with the devil. Yep. The femme patriarch. The matriarch. That line made no sense. The person who said it never really interacted with the Wasp. Which line? Tommy in the Guinea Pig Collective. How you doing? I think you're new. Good to see you. Good to see you, Tommy. I got thrown for a loop for a second because I thought it was somebody else. Well, the scientist in the original story was unarmed. Also, Stan didn't always write Ant-Man. Yeah. Ant-Man was always a second-tier character. I loved Ant-Man. The only reason they have stairs in Atlantis is it used to be a surface city. True. Hey, Tony's here. How you doing, Tony? Tony Gringo's here. True. But it used to be 2,000 years ago. They didn't do any construction since then. You know what I mean? Like, doorways you don't have to be on the ground level. Doorways should be everywhere. You fish when they go into their little structures. They swim anywhere. She could have had my love. He had zero interaction with the Wasp. Oh, well, until they reveal the character. I mean, I know who it is, but I'm keeping the suspense up. She could have had but he could also be a crazy person. But yeah, I get what you're saying. So let's turn the page. Dun, dun, dun. Oh no, it's an ad. Get this. Anybody ever hear this song, Reflections of a Superhero? Here's some great, hi, rock fans. This is old Spider-Man himself talking at you. I'm here to tell you about the latest hit of the disco world. So, rock fans, disco world, Reflections of a Rock Superhero, featuring songs about your friendly neighborhood. You know who. Don't dare miss it. I gotta look this up. Anybody ever hear these? I've always seen this record and I've never heard it. Can't possibly be good. I gotta check it out. You're good. Magic Charms, lollipops, and let's get back to this. Now, after all of that tension buildup, here's the payoff. No, I do not want to be an Avenger. Hank, I'd just rather not be a superhero at all, Jan. I'm a scientist. A little eccentric maybe, but a laboratory man, just the same. Maybe I could be a defender where they give you more free time, but I can't get involved here. I'm sorry. Oh, no. Out of all the inconsistencies in comic books, this is the most consistent inconsistency, that Janet Van Dyne and Hank Pym have a troubled relationship. It's in the early Marvel, they had these creepy relationships where older scientists were with young, hot, basically teenage girls, Reed Richards, Sue Storm, and then we had Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, who was explicitly 16 years old. They mentioned that in her first appearance, and Hank was in his 30s. So they had the scientist and the doting young girl twice. So it was kind of redundant, So they made it unique by changing up the dynamics. Reed and Sue were the perfect marriage. Janet and Hank became the troubled marriage. So now we're talking about Hank was followed by the other original Avengers returning to the team over the years. One of them was Spider-Man, Submariner, Daredevil, and now we're talking about like other, I don't know, second tier, third tier Avengers. Hercules, Black Knight, Black Panther, the Black Widow, Vision. I love all these characters, and there's a place in them for the Avengers, but I don't know. Spider-Man, Submariner, and Daredevil, to me, they're not Avengers. Why? They have their own stories to tell. They're too unique. They I don't know. Thor has his own comic. Iron Man has his own comic. But I don't know. Daredevil is a solo character. There's some characters that are just solo characters. Submariner is a solo character. Spider-Man is a solo character. I know the Quesada years, they started disregarding continuity and tradition. Let's just put the Avengers supposed to be the best of Marvel characters. No, it's not. You know what I mean? Like Circe is not one of the best of Marvel characters. Why is she? But she was on the Avengers. The Avengers is the Avengers. Solo characters, they don't need to put them on the Avengers. Daredevil just is established as a solo guy. He works best as a solo guy. Wolverine is an X-Men. He should not be on the Avengers. None of the X-Men, they're supposed to be outlaw mutant outcasts. How can you be an outlaw mutant outcast on the Avengers, which are like the premier government-sponsored team? That's like Rage Against the Machine saying that, we're gonna fight the corruption when they're sponsored by Citibank. Get your vaccines, but fight the system. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Let's check out the comments. I know who it is, but Marvel has been at that point. He had no interaction with the Wasp as he was an Iron Man villain. Yeah. I know. Yes, the album was great. Now I really want to listen to it. They wrote rock songs around the Spider-Man story. I got to check it out. Is it on YouTube? I got to remember to check it out. Kingpin kidnaps Aunt May and delivers a special camera to Peter Parker. He wants Peter to take a picture of Spidey, which would be Spidey's last. Doctor Strange contacts Spidey and they deal with Kingpin. Avengers then absorbs the X-Men by force if necessary. Roger Stern used Namor pretty effectively. Yeah, I'm not saying that, like, there's some good Spider-Man interactions in the Avengers, but for the most part, I'll buy Submariner because at least he doesn't have his own comic. His comic keeps failing because they don't know what to do with the water-based superhero. Also, and plus he's a villain half the time. Also, Spidey, why would they give security clearance to a guy who tried to destroy Manhattan? That's like one of my big problems, And he's just going to steal the state secrets and bring them to Atlantis. It's like being a dual citizen. Black Panther to me is like an exception. Like he's not going to, But also now that I think about it, Black Panther shouldn't be an Avenger. He's his loyalty is to another nation. That would be a whole story. Like, no, sorry, Black Panther, you can't be in the Avengers. Your loyalties are to a foreign state. Also, Spidey was having nightmares fighting his villains while a voice is called out to him. In the end, he realized it was Uncle Ben's voice. Doctor Strange tells Spidey, I have a message for your friend Peter Parker. Tell him that Uncle Ben is very proud of him today. Okay. These are the okay. I was wondering where you're going. These are all from the album. Okay, I get it. I may be dumb. And I may be dumb, but I ain't stupid. Which is not true. I am dumb and stupid. So let's turn the page. Did I turn 2 pages? No, I did not. So now cut to the champions. Dun, dun, dun. One of the cheesiest, greatest, oddest group of heroes ever. Look at this team. We got Hercules, Black Widow, the Angel, Iceman, and Ghost Rider. No reason for them to be together, but they're together. And they're out in California, which I think is great. Have why is New York getting all the superhero teams? Because that's where all the Marvel guys work. So now the champions are in California. Look at this horrible costume for Angel. Look just horrible. The costume, with the white thing down the middle with the reds on the sides. Classic costume. Never change it. Never change it. Put him back in that costume. Leave him in that costume. It's great. So they're all like, Hercules and Black Widow are like, the Avengers was my real home too. What's going on? Look at this wonky perspective. So check out this panel right here. Hercules opens up the window and he sees the roofs of building. Marcus, you're an artist, right? That's just so off. So that means that this building they're on must be curved, looking down on buildings. This is the kind of stuff that Marv Wolfman's like, we're going to fire you. We're going to fire you. And he got better. But this is just awful perspective. And then they're like, we're the champions. So Hercules was one of, I'm going to go back to the Avengers. He's having a little heartfelt. To me, this is just, hey, look, check out the champions. Champions is on sale, but Marvel Comics, teams. I'm not even sure why I joined this one. I guess everybody needs a friend, even a Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider is one of the most inconsistent Marvel characters of all time. Jan, if you want to go after Hank, no, thank you, Iron Man. He's his own man, and I'm my own woman. That rat, I won't give him the satisfaction. In that case, we'll turn to the applicants. So now they got, like, dare I say, like the legacy heroes, the guys, like they were already members, they got first priority. So now they get the people who never really were part of the Avengers. First, Moondragon. So Moondragon stands up. Guys, I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna outright say it. Back in the 70s, there was a thing about hot bald chicks. Check out the first Star Trek movie. Hot bald chick, something about her was sexy. Moondragon. That was like a miniature thing for a while. Hot bald chicks. I don't know. Was CIA psyoping us? I don't know. No, I don't put. Since COVID, I don't put it past the CIA. Is talk about an organization that needs to be destroyed. So I shall refuse your offer, Iron Man, and I could hardly fault Thor for his godhood and force. I could hardly fault Thor for his godhood and then force mine upon you now, could I? What a snob. So Thor already rejected the team, and now Moondragon, because she's a goddess, is quitting the team, right? And then Hellcat goes, what a snob. I've never truly felt comfortable with the Avengers. I imagine I might, but you have been proven too constraining. And then Iron Man's thinking, who the heck does she think she is? I returned to this world of my birth to see what it consists of. You have shown me much of it. Now, however, I must have my freedom to wander where I will. Yet, though we are worlds apart, you have granted me great kindness. I respect you singularly and together, though we are worlds apart. If our paths cross again, we shall be as allies. Thank goodness for small favors, huh? And I proposed to her for membership. So much for my record of infallibility. Okay, that brings us to the bouncing, bubbling beast, Boychik, who's in like Flynn with the great big grin. Don't let the moody bug you, folks. I'll make up for her loss. Doubled and redoubled. Take me, I'm yours. So Hank Pym, Hank McCoy, the Beast. This is my favorite Beast. Happy-go-lucky, fun, silly. I didn't even know he was a scientist at this point. But to me, Beast, blue furry Beast was an Avenger. I that's just where I started with this character. So I just love this version. The sad sack mopey mutant, I hate that. But this is the Beast that I love. Where are we? Wow, a lot of comments. It's all on YouTube. Yeah, I'm gonna check it out now. Hey, Pete's here. Just jumped in here. Looks like Saturday, Sunday. Well, Sunday is also Sunday comics. Saturdays, I'm going to do the Avengers, and Sunday, I'm going to do the X-Men. You know, also understand sometimes life gets in the way. I reserve the right to work overtime and stuff like that. Well, Namor is a head of state, and he does have diplomatic communities. Also, Avengers fight all over Earth. True, but the Avenger is a U.S. government-sponsored team. You know, that gets secret stuff like that. You have to have security clearance. I would not let Namor, Black Panther, on the Avengers. You know, and I would make that part of the story. No, you know, your loyalty is to another nation state. You know, we can't allow you in. Hey, R.J. Williams of Call Sign Orion is here. How you doing? How's everything? It's odd. Ghost Rider is just standing around watching TV as Ghost Rider. I know, but that's the exact, comic books, they always have them in costume. If this was the movies, it would be Nicolas Cage. You know what I mean? Because it's cheaper, and Nicolas Cage wants his face to be shown. Unless he was ready to fight over the remote. Or the Champions Building was on a hilltop in LA. I know. Get in the kitchen, Wasp. She's rich. She's got a staff for the kitchen. That's where she belongs. Right, Heather? You're a goddess. Yeah, Heather Douglas is Moondragon's real name. The daughter of Drax the Destroyer. This is Drax the Destroyer's daughter. JFK wanted to scatter the CIA into the wind. How did that turn out? I know. Our favorite version of the Beast. And the CIA has been running the presidency ever since. Dare I say it. You know, Mossad and the CIA have been running the presidency ever since. You're going to tell me it was a coincidence that Barack Obama's mother was the secretary to the head of the CIA? Look it up. And Stanley, what was her maiden name? Obama's mother's name was Stanley. She was a secretary to the director of the CIA. You're going to tell me that was a coincidence? I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Stanley Durham. That was Obama's mother's name, Stanley Durham. She went by Ann. So let's check out the letters page. This is an apology because they made a mistake. Back then, Marvel used to care about mistakes and continuity errors. And then we have one letter by Michael Cordia. Oh, from the military. Okay, from the Naval Academy. Here we go. Oh, we got another ad. They're really killing us with this tension. Oh. Well, Obama's granddad was a CIA operative. That's how the daughter got the job. What a coincidence. What a coincidence. What a coincidence. Look at this horrible face. Look at this horrible face. Again, this is George Perez at the start of his career. It's 1976. I think he's only been drawing comics professionally for like 3 or 4 years. I forget what he didn't start out in Marvel, and then I think his first Marvel gig was Sons of the Tiger in Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, and it's really the art is it's got potential, and it's got a great ambition, but it's lacking, you know. But look at that. You could see the limitations in George Perez. But man, does this guy get good so fast. No, I mean, I'm sorry, but I have no personal objections to the Beast. But what? The Beast distinguished itself in combat during your hospital stay. Yes, but aren't we getting overcrowded? I mean, hey, I don't take up that much room. And it's my conspicuous credentials you're questioning. No, as chairman, I'm not ready or willing to lead an army. So we'll have to draw the line somewhere. But the Beast has proven himself. We'll take him. You know. If the line is drawn before I convince Hank to join, I don't know what I'll do. What about Hellcat? So she's rejecting people, hoping to save a space for Hank. Oh, poor lovelorn Janet. I suppose we have room for one more. Remember, I suggest we limit it to that. What about you, Hellcat? And then we cut to Mantis over here. Yes, this is Mantis in the comics. Odd costume. Mantis was a half Vietnamese, half white prostitute that learned martial arts and was autistic and talked to herself in the third person, and was selected to become the mother of she was a celestial Madonna. Her child was going to be the perfect being, like Space Jesus. Sounds exactly like the comic book character, right? I mean, the movie character, right? And we got, they're talking about all the chicks in the Avengers, So we got Mantis, Scarlet Witch, the Wasp, Moondragon. I'm surprised they haven't put Moondragon in the movies, to be honest. Like, I could see them throwing her in the Guardians of the Galaxy. She's an arrogant girl boss. I mean, it's funny because in the comics, she's an arrogant girl boss, and she's supposed to be unlikable, because that's what an arrogant girl boss is. Can't help it. They're unlikable. So just keep her exactly the same, and she'll be like a progressive icon. We got Hellcat. I've always liked Hellcat. I don't know what it is. The name, the costume, it's so cool. And a little bit of a Marvel deep dive over here. She's Patsy Walker, and Patsy Walker is one of the original Marvel characters. Remember, Marvel had comics before Marvel. There was what they called girl comics, and Patsy Walker was like an Archie. She was like a Veronica character. She was a girl model, and then in continuity, they made it so that Patsy Walker, the comic book, actually existed, and it was based on stories that her mother made up about her daughter, Patsy Walker. So Patsy Walker is, also the model character and also Hellcat. I thought it's pretty clever. I think it's time to bring back Billy the Model and Chili Storm and Patsy Walker comics. They do little revivals of those comics every once in a while, but they got to commit to the bit. Make them all influencers, So I accept. Wait, you cannot. You're not ready yet. You have not had the training, the experience. You must not join yet. But hear me, Hellcat. Hellcat must come with me, and I'll brook no argument. She'll learn to be a heroine on the side of a goddess. Hold on there. That's Patsy's decision. Silence. It is decided. I will teach her about superhumanity, and she will help me understand simple humanity and Earth. I do need training, and as long as the offer stays open, I guess I won't join now, but I will. You know what? This just made me think of something. So Moondragon is arrogant, and yet she's adamant that she's going to train Hellcat. Now, Peter David established that she's a lesbian. I wonder if he saw this and this is what made, or did he just like, she's got to be a lesbian, that whatever. But if so, that makes this even creepier. She likes Hellcat, and she's using her authority to train her. So you see what I'm saying? This is kind of creepy if you look at it through those veins. My favorite version. Not having Hellcat was really no loss. So we lost a character with normal human strength. Yeah, I don't know. I like Hellcat. Steve Englehart was in love with Mantis. He brought her to every Marvel series and created a version when he wrote for DC. And I think he also made a version for Eclipse comics. Steve Englehart literally took Mantis and then made carbon copies of the character in every company that he worked for, and like continued her story, which somehow I would come up with a story that made all those characters the continuity stick together, because I'm a freak like that. Patsy Walker and Billy the Model were outside the venue during the wedding of Reed and Sue. Yep. People waving. The thing spanked Moondragon in Marvel 2-in-1. Yep. She needed a spanking. And Ben Grimm ain't gonna, old-fashioned Ben Grimm, he ain't gonna take a sassy mouth from some bald chick. Who's going to join? Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. I don't know who's going to join. Fake out. I'm not ready to give up my laboratory work. I just can't get avenging out of my blood. Oh, Hank, you don't know how happy I am. Do you really think I'd leave you, honey? Let's keep things loose. Hank, you could move your lab stuff in here if you like and help us out of the tighter spots. So that was a close call. That was some drama. Hank Pym almost didn't join. And notice he's got a holster. He's got a gun. You know, he couldn't shoot rays, so he had a stinger gun. You know, whether it's a laser gun or whether it shot needles, you know, they kind of forget how it works. Sometimes it's a laser gun, sometimes it fires needles, and then next thing you know, they incorporate it into his costume. You know, excellent. Thus, Yellow Jacket does surf in times of dire peril, just as Hawkeye is offered to methinks this special Avenger status is an idea was. So Hawkeye is a special status. He's you know, a detached Avenger, so they can call him up when they need him. Let's apply that status to Hellcat and Moondragon as well. Then it is done. All that remains is the announcement. So Moondragon is a special status Avenger, you know, like a reserve, and same with Hellcat. And then we'll say goodbye. Only the Avengers can boast a god and a goddess as Avengers on call, Iron Man. I pray, though, that you never face danger so the great that my power needs save you. You know, Iron Man's like, me too. So do I, Baldy. And now, take care, Patsy. I'll miss your aggravation. That's Hellcat. Don't you dare make me cry. I'm a superheroine. I have a feeling an era just passed. So Moondragon is just leaving with Moondragon is leaving with Patsy Walker that needs special training under that bald head. And you know where to take us, Woman. I'm not yet convinced the wisdom of the scheme of yours, nor do I understand. Hush, then, son of Odin. If you were certain of the folly of my course, you would not transport us thus. Boom. If you were convinced my course was folly, you wouldn't transport us. So Moondragon is even arrogant to Thor. There's the crowd. There it is. You know, here we go. Jarvis, Avengers Assemble. So here is the Avengers now. The new roster is the Vision, Scarlet Witch, the Beast, Iron Man, Captain America, Wasp, and Yellow Jacket. And to me, you know, you throw in Thor, and that's the Avengers to me. To me, this is the core Avengers. Why? Because this is when I started collecting comics. This is the team when they started. You know what I mean? So this is what cemented this team in my old fogey brain. You know. And now we got really rid of the first two. Oh, let's check out the comments. Also, how does anyone know if Moondragon is Moon? Good point. Moondragon's powers are telepathy, right? And there's nobody else to check. Nobody else on the Avengers can check if she's being mind controlled. You know what I mean? Hello, I forgot to set my alarm. I won't be late next time. Oh, okay, cool. Where do you live? That, you know, because I forgot to set my alarm too. I woke up like with only 25 minutes. You know, but now you can tell my coffee's kicking in, and I gotta go to work. I gotta leave at 1 for work. All they need is Thor and Wonder Man. Where is that guy? Well, Wonder Man will be showing up real soon. Wonder Man's dead at this point. And we got Marvel Bolton, cupcake cards. Ta-da. So now, Hunt, we can get used to being an Avenger after all. Look at this interesting use of coloring over here. I'm going to ask you guys, does this work? Sometimes I'm a fan of the limited coloring, but I don't think it works in this particular case. So only the Avengers are colored. Everybody else is just this grayish purple. You know, even the box and everything else. I don't know. I understand what they were going for, but I just don't like it. And look how bad the art is. Like, to George, you get rushed at this point because it looks like the inker has taken over your style. So this just must have been Deadline Doom. You know, look at that. This is just terrible. I know. Did they change it the last minute? Oh, what's that big crate's doing a jig? Smash! I don't believe it. I watched him die. It can't be. Wonder Man. He did it. He's the one who stole my mind. And he points to the Avengers, the Avengers, the Vision. So there you go. You asked for Wonder Man, you got Wonder Man. This is literally the first time we saw Wonder Man since Avengers number 9. Give or take 12 years, so Nightmare in New Orleans. So what's going on? Dun, dun, dun. You asked for it, you got it. Oh, there's Wonder Man. He relied on the post office to get him there. That's why he's late. Funny. Good comment. So there you go. We got the Revolutionary War soldiers, prizes and cash, back covers, Alding. So there you go. So I'm going to take a picture of this and put it as my backdrop because I don't like the backdrop that's there. So there you go. That's Avengers Assemble. This is the second episode, and we're going to continue next issue next Saturday. If I'm not working overtime, will be issue 151. Right? And the thing in my business, I don't know if I'm working overtime till Friday, so I can make the video and So check Twitter or the comment section on this YouTube channel to see whether or not it's actually going to happen. It's very rarely that we do overtime on Sundays, so Sunday comics has been pretty consistent. But Saturdays, it's time and a half. It's kind of hard to say no. Well, you've seen in various flashbacks before now. Yeah, flashbacks. There you go. So there you go. This is Avengers Assemble. This is the second episode. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, super chats, all the YouTube stuff. All super chat money goes to pay StreamYards, which is getting more and more expensive. I have to upgrade so I can have the camera within the camera. What else do I got to say? Heroic Tales 3 is already written, and it's going to be the conclusion to the Mary Sue origin story, and then the backups. So the way Heroic Tales is going to be is I want to have Renzo draw one story if he's willing to work with me. I don't want to just assume or take him for granted. So he'll do the Mary Sue story, and then something else. Whoever's finished first out of all the other artists. Looks like it's probably going to be Luke Stone with the Sleeper Agent. So that's probably going to be Heroic Tales 3. Patriarch number 1 is nearer to completion than not, and that's going to be coming soon, but I'm going to wait for that to be done before launching the campaign. But we put that on a little bit of a hold because I want to get the 16-page King Fu story done, because I want to ensure that it'll be finished in time for Christmas. So Renzo is hard at work on that right now. And then I got a backup that I got to send to a new artist that I'm trying out to do like a 4-page backup, because that's a 16-page story. I'm going to do like a 4 to 5 backup story. That'll make it to 21, and then maybe like an ad or a ledger page to make it 22 pages. And then the front cover, back cover. It'll still be a flip book. So that's the agenda. And then I got other stuff currently being worked on. Some stuff, NDA. And then things like that. What Phantom Outsider says. Also, prior to Moondragon, Lady Sif was a real goddess, stayed in the mansion and participated in some adventures a few years early, but was never an official member. I always like Sif. I'm surprised they didn't do a Sif miniseries. At one point, here Baldur and Warriors 3 all lived in Avengers Mansion. I don't remember that. But I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I don't remember that. But there you go. All right. What do you think? Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and we got, if you want to support the channel, we got the super chat or PayPal at johnslongbox@yahoo.com. There we go. All the I don't do Patreon or coffee or anything like that. I feel that's begging. Oh, we got a new name over here. Oh, and I clicked and it jumped. So I might as well talk about this. Also, wanted to see the reviews. I'd like to have seen a Beast who joined later try and get Hogan the Grim to lighten up. Yeah, and then he gets smashed in the face. But yeah, I always liked the Warriors 3. I always liked it. And they got unceremoniously killed in the movies. What a shame. Waste of potential. Didn't they do a Sif series during Journey into Mystery? They did. They did. And I enjoyed it. I always liked the character of Sif. I think it's the way Walt Simonson drew her and the way John Buscema and Sal Buscema drew her. I don't know, man. They always drew like a it's just I'm a male, flesh and blood. You know what I mean? Just like nice hips and meaty thighs. You know, and Walt Simonson drew her the best, if you ask me. But there you go. All right. Getting the bag and board, and I guess at this point it's time to say goodbye, kids.